Hi, everybody. I'm Ryan Dolley, VP of Product Strategy here at GoodData, and I am excited to walk you through what we have coming up on our GoodData product journey inside Q2 features, the roadmap, and a great customer success story we're happy to share with you at the end of the show today. So let's get started. What are we going to go through? A new feature update, a sneak peek at the Q3 roadmap, and a customer spotlight with Sustain 360, who is one of our great customers. We're going to be doing a live demo of their solution. It's really cool. So you're definitely going to want to check it out. Of course, I'm Ryan Dolley, VP of Product Strategy. I am joined today by Baz Khuti, the CEO of Sustain 360. Would you like to say hi to everyone real quick here, Baz?
Hey, hi, Ryan. Thanks for the opportunity. Great to meet everyone. Baz Khuti, CEO and founder and CEO of Sustain 360, and welcome the opportunity to demonstrate how we're using GoodData's technologies to power our applications.
Awesome. So I look forward to that. This is going to be a really great demo. Make sure you stick around to see it at the end here. Before we get to Baz, though, a couple points of order. First of all, you attendees are all muted upon entry. There is a Zoom Q&A box. So if you use the Zoom Q&A box, you can get questions in, and we will try to answer the questions during the course of the webinar. Anything we can't get to, of course, we will answer after the fact via email. And we will be sending out a follow-up email with a recording of this to anybody who registered or attended the webinar. If this is your first time joining us, of course, we are GoodData. We are the analytics product platform for when good enough is just not good enough for your customers or users. We focus on simplicity, flexibility, productivity, and scalability, all wrapped in an analytics as code, API first, super iterative, scalable, customizable, composable approach that will allow you to build the analytics experience that is exactly what you need, not just good enough. So check us out at gooddata.com to learn more there. All right. I'm very excited for this today because we have a lot of great stuff to show you. So let's see what we're going to go over. We're going to be giving an overview of GoodData AI. Now, if you don't know yet, GoodData AI is our first AI product. It launched a few weeks ago. Very exciting. I'll be giving a demo of that. Many of you were involved in the beta, but I'll be showing you what's new in that product. Even since launch, there's been enhancements that have gone into it. We're going to show dynamic text references, updates to flexible layouts, the new audit log that you have access to. We'll give you an update on accessibility, talk about query cancellation and how that impacts performance. And then we will jump into the roadmap and then bring Baz on. So with that said, let's get into the demo. Here we go. So I'm going to start from here. Now, those of you who are really familiar with GoodData may already recognize some elements on this screen that are different from what you're used to as far as layouts and some of the text on there. And I will get to those later. What I want to start with is the AI features that we recently launched. So our AI features come in two flavors. There's what we call Smart Search, and then there's what we call the AI Assistant. You have access to both of these here at the top of the screen. And everything I'm going to show you in both Smart Search and the AI Assistant is available through our UI. It's an embeddable component that you can put into your UI, and it's available via an API level integration. So if you want to do a direct integration between your applications and your own custom front end, you don't want to use our UI elements at all, but you want to use this core tech, that's available too, just like with everything else on our platform. Looking at Smart Search, what Smart Search is it is a semantic-driven search. So it is there to just provide the quickest possible path for your users and customers to get to pre-existing content by searching here. So you can see if I go ahead and search for something like revenue, not product, if revenue, there we go. What is going to happen? Just click the back button there. Accidentally fat fingered my mouse on that search. All right, if you go to search for revenue, you'll see I get all of these results. And just the important thing to highlight is that it's not doing a dumb name match, right? It is actually looking at the context of the objects that exist in GoodData, as well as the metadata you provide for it. So the information you provide in the descriptions in order to do this matching. So I type in revenue. We don't actually have any metrics or anything called revenue in this data set, but it knows that someone who's searching for revenue is probably interested in something like gross profit. And so you see it surfaces all of these gross profit items first. Now, what are these, right? You can see it's surfacing visualizations, it's surfacing metrics, and that sort of thing. So it's not just a viz search or a dashboard search. It will search through every level of content that we have within GoodData and surface all of that based on the search term that you put in. This is one of those things, the more data you provide it, the better the descriptions, especially for your kind of term of art, your industry specific terms. You're going to want to put that in the descriptions of your metrics. And suddenly this smart search is going to be able to find things even when people don't know the right term, because you'll say, hey, we call it, we call it something else here, not revenue. But when they type in revenue, I want you to surface this object instead, and it will be able to do that. So again, that is just about the quickest possible path to finding pre-existing content. Now, we also launched the AI Assistant, and here you can see the AI Assistant. The AI Assistant is a chatbot that can both find existing content and author new content through the same chat window. And again, this is available in this UI. It's embeddable in other UIs, and it's available via API integration. So let's look at how this works. Let's imagine I've come in, I've looked at this dashboard, and this is great, but I really need to do an analysis of our customers based on, I'm trying to do an analysis of customer age, right? How long have they been a customer, and what impact does that have on the total order volume that they do through us? Now, traditionally, I would have to know how to use the drag and drop analytics designer to be able to find that, but now I can click on this button, and it pops up in the AI Assistant. And you can start by just saying something like, do you have any data about sales? Ooh, you can get your fingers on the home row keys. Do you have any data about sales or revenue? And see what it comes back with. And what we're looking to see here is that it's going to show us a list of the content, and it didn't, of course, but what it did do, so what I was hoping to see there was it would show us a list of the content that actually exists in this workspace. Now, the thing with AI, of course, is it's non-deterministic, and that means you get a non-deterministic demo, right? In this case, it took my question and it interpreted it, said, well, listen, I can give you some information about that, total sales and net sales in the form of this visualization, right? So you can type in a general term like, hey, I just want to know something about net sales and revenue, and it can suggest to you pre-existing content or author new content like what we saw here. Now, in our case, we have something really specific we want to know, and that has to do with the length of time that customers have been here. So we can go ahead and say, show total sales by, and then you'll see as I start typing customer, it's going to pop open with this type ahead essentially. So I've typed in enough for it to identify, hey, there are attributes and metrics in this data set that meet the term that someone's typing in, and I will just suggest to them, I meaning the AI, will suggest to them those terms to make the query more accurate, right? So when you do this, you're no longer relying on the AI to interpret what field you want. You've really said, I want total sales by this field customer age. And so it knows specifically and exactly what field to include in the query. So we'll hit that. And now it's going to generate for us a chart of total sales by customer age. And we can see that, right? So it's broken down, it's bucketized these. These are months, right? This 3M, 4 to 6M, 7M plus, right? Are the months that a customer has been a customer of ours. This is a data set that has 1 year's worth of data. And so that's pretty great. I can, and it tells me how it made it, the exact metrics and attributes and filters that it applied to make this visualization. And it applies or provides some suggestions of what I might want to do next. So it's in a column chart. It knows one thing I might want to do is switch it to a bar chart. And I do want to do that. So let's go ahead and make that request of the AI assistant. And it should come back here with a bar chart instead of a column chart for this visualization. And so now you can see I can start to make some changes to the visualization type. I can also apply slicers from here. So let's say slice by customer city. And now it should take customer city and add that as an element to the visualization. And that will give me a review of my bucketized customers, how long they've been a customer, the total sales for each customer age group, and then also analyzed by city. So you can see it did everything we wanted. That's great. But now what? Many AI assistants are really struggle at this point. Like, what do you do with it? Okay, you got the answer. Now what do you do with it? Well, there's a couple things you can do here. Within GoodData, you can go ahead and directly save the visualization. So that it'll give me the opportunity to rename it. I think that name is fine. And now it's saved into the library of visualizations that are available to me as a user. The other thing I can do from here is say, I want to open this in Analyze, and this will take me into Analytics Designer. And now I can apply all of the skills I have as a designer, tweaking this visualization, to make it look exactly the way I want it. For example, you see when I came in here, it applied a sort to it. So now it's sorted per city, in descending order. And so those are the types of things. Now I can tweak it, do whatever I want to it, and then save it into the visualization library. So this is all available today in GoodData. If you want to check it out, go into your environment, and you should have access to these features. Now, the other things I want to highlight here that I think are really exciting that you have access to now are the ability for you to, let's start with what we call flexible layouting. Now, this has been available in the in an experimental state for a while, but we're coming close to wrapping this up, and there are going to be a few more changes to it before it goes fully into production. But just to give you an overview of how this works, as you know, in GoodData, it's quite, we have a kind of a fixed layouting format based on rows in our dashboards. So if you want to create a dashboard, like you can see here, maybe I want to build a dashboard. So I've got orders over time, and then let's look for some KPIs. So, net sales, let's add net sales, and let's add maybe a customer related KPI to this as well. Let's do total customers. Okay. Now, the way that you most commonly would want to arrange these, it's just, we don't, GoodData traditionally doesn't offer you a ton of options for how to arrange these. And that's where this container feature comes in. So what I'm going to do here is drop the container in next to order over time, and then I can add my net sales and my total customers into that container. And maybe, because I have the space, I can add, let's add this net sales. This is a good one. Net sales by product. Yep, net sales by product category. So let's drop that into this container too. And so then you can see I have net sales by product, and I can arrange these to be a little more compact, and let's make this a little bigger. And now I can do some layouting that I've never been able to do in the past. Like I said, this has been in kind of an experimental state. You can turn it on in your environment now and have access to this now, and I know many of you have. What the changes that are coming is this container object, we're going to make it be able to operate so that you have some control when you add new objects to it. Do you want it to be a column container where the new objects go in vertically, or do you want it to be a row style container where the new objects go in horizontally? The other thing I would add is you can nest these within one another. So it's really kind of, you can get to some very complex layouts now that you couldn't in the past by using these containers. And this should be coming into the product like full blown in production, no longer an experimental feature in the next few weeks. The next thing I would like to highlight here is that the dynamic text references. Dynamic text references are a really powerful feature. So let's drop a container in here and we'll expand this, drop this into the container. Okay. Now, of course, we've had this rich text object for a while now, as you are probably aware. Let's move this to the, oh, where did it go? Let's move this to the front. No, I want it on top, please. Okay, let's try this again. Let's delete this container. There we go. And add this column container in here. Let's expand it. Fit this into it. And now let's add our rich text there to the top where I wanted it. So you've been able to put in text and images and links and that sort of thing. But now you're able to put in these, what we call metric or attribute references. So I'm just going to paste this in, and you can see here the syntax that you need for these references. So it's, metric / and then the name of the metric, right? And the same thing for attribute / and the name of the attribute. And what that will do is it will, in real time, when you execute a query, when you open a dashboard, it will fetch data values and fill them in to your text at runtime. And these data values respect filters and all that sort of thing. So it's a really powerful way to communicate data and insights to your customers using text. You can also do this, and I thought this was very cool. You can also put this in the descriptions of objects, right? So you'll see here that I now have this in the description of this chart. And if I save this, when my end user is viewing this, they can hover over the question mark and they will get that dynamic text reference within the description of the object. So you can also use those if you don't want to put this dynamic text, data description onto the dashboard itself. You can use it in the description of the object so that when someone hovers over it, they can get some additional details, additional data that maybe didn't make sense to include in the visualization, but is good context for your user to know. The final thing I want to highlight in changes, and this actually went in September, but I suspect a lot of you are not aware of it, is that we have now the ability to create saved views. So let me go ahead. I'll call this, say, month view and save it. And now I'm going to apply a filter state to say, shift it to this year. And you'll notice all of this updated, right? So everything on the screen updated, including my text references, these two updated as well, right? And now I'm going to create a new view and call this year view. And we'll save that as well. So now anytime I come into this dashboard, I as an individual can switch automatically, not automatically, but I can come in and switch between my filter states simply by clicking the button. I can swap between month view and year view. I can add as many filter states as I want. Of course, we also have the ability for you to, where it will just remember your last state as a user, where it will always default to the last state that you as an individual left this dashboard in. But this is kind of the next level of that. If you have 10 regions and you want to look at all 10 regions, every Monday you want to come in and look at all 10 regions, it's simple. You save your filter states and then you can come through and just click through the views and you're able to do that. So Those are the changes that are in production today or available as a very late stage experimental feature that you have access to, that I think you should run back to your desk after this and check them out. Now, what else do we have available in the product live now that we've recently launched that is harder to see? The first one, and we know this is a huge request that we get, is the audit log. People want an audit log. Well, it's now available. So the audit log, the way it works, it will deliver to an S3 bucket that you own every 10 minutes. So you have to set up an S3 bucket. You give us the information. You contact support and say, hey, I'd like to turn on the audit log. This is where I want it sent. This is the bucket. And then you can, and then we will deliver the audit log to that bucket. It's a complete list of actions, so it's really robust. If you go into our documentation, you can see the full list of actions, but it's all the content, what people did on the content, security changes, administrative changes. It's all of that kind of stuff that you have that you can see in there, and it's available today to customers on the enterprise tier. Next, we want to give you an update on accessibility. So we are doing a huge accessibility project to make sure that you have access to, that your customers have access to accessible analytics, and we're in mid-flight. So what we've done so far includes keyboard navigation, improved metadata on the objects, visualization enhancements to make them easier to read. We're midway through screen reader integration. We'll be adding more keyboard navigation steps in the future, and then we'll also be producing accessible PDFs and an accessible mobile experience by the end of the year. We are going to have a full-blown third-party audit of our accessibility that we can make available to you. And so if this is something that you need for your customers and users, and it really is, this is becoming more and more important as time goes on, not the least which because of regulatory changes that we see coming on board in the EU. We are committed to being the most accessible analytics platform in the world. So that's where we are on that journey. And then finally, we went into production with query cancellation. So what this does is that it cancels in-process queries when the user issues a new action. If the user does something and they're watching the wheel spin and then they do something new, right? Rather than allowing that query to finish on the database, we go ahead and now proactively cancel that query. You can see in our little chart here, right? The user takes all these actions, but action one, they take action two before the query for action one is finished. It makes the query for action one irrelevant. So we cancel it, we trigger its cancellation within the database. This prevents query overload and improves the performance for your end users, particularly when they're really rapidly iterating through filter sets and that sort of thing. And so this also is live and available to all customers today. All right, so that's what you can see now, what we've delivered in Q2. Let's talk about what's coming next. So the first thing I want to highlight is table improvements. We are working on a new interactive table object in Analytics Designer and Dashboards. This object has a lot of the interactive capabilities that you have requested. So that means you can group and collapse rows. You can do multi-column sorts. It offers in-table aggregations and summaries. It also includes, and I know this is a huge request from some of you who really need this, is the ability to turn on and off text wrapping within table and pivot table objects, and the ability to easily copy text out of our tables and pivot tables. So this is going to be a total revamp of how we do these objects within GoodData. They are going to be much more interactive for your end users, where your end users can do all sorts of stuff that in order to filter, sort, group, and that sort of thing directly within the table objects themselves. So that is another huge thing that you can look forward to coming up. And then relative date filters out of the box. Of course, you've always been able to calculate relative dates with Macwool and create relative date metrics. But now we will provide these to you out of the box. So year to date, quarter to date, month to date, week to date will all be default filter selections for all of your users without you having to do any extra modeling to provide it. And that will be coming in Q3. The final thing that we want to highlight that's coming up in Q3, and I see we have some questions. I will get to the Q&A right after this, is aggregate awareness. So this is a design pattern where you might have, say, a detail fact table and then a day level fact table and a month level fact table within your data warehouse. We will be able to intelligently select the correct fact table based on the usage of your, based on the user input. So when the user is looking at things at a month level and then they drill down into a day level, we will intelligently switch from the month level table that you've prepared to the day level table that you've prepared. This can dramatically increase performance, especially in those situations where your users do like to do those types of filters where they look at different grains of data, right? So this is coming in Q3, and it will be configurable via the SDK. So you're going to need to provide to GoodData via the SDK these multi-grain level or aggregate level relationships between your tables, and then our query engine will just take them into account. Whether you're running a pre-existing dashboard or building visualizations, nobody has to know this. You don't have to expose these different, detail level tables to your end users. It will look like one table to your end users, but in reality, it's 3 tables in this example under the hood, and we intelligently select the right one based on user input to give the best possible performance. Whew. All right, so let me take a couple questions here, and then we're going to move into the roadmap, and we'll invite Baz to join us. So Tomas asks, can I drop containers into containers? I think I addressed that, but yes, Tomas, you can. So that's really great. We have an anonymous attendee ask, are there plans for an official GoodData MCP server? Stay tuned. We will have an announcement in July. I'm not going to say any more than that. When flexible layouts are generally available, will they also be compatible with analytics as code? I believe the answer is yes, like 95% certain. If they're not immediately usable with analytics as code, I'm sure they will be in short order, but we can get a 100% answer on that for you. Tomas asks, is it possible to use dynamic text and tooltips? Yes, it is possible to use dynamic text in tooltips. And then Tomas says freeze headers would be amazing, and big thumbs up for aggregate awareness. Thank you, Tomas, for all the great questions and the thumbs up. And if you have any more questions, of course, get them in, and I am happy to answer them. All right. So what's the longer term roadmap look like? Well, we have kind of 3 layers to GoodData. We have GoodData BI, GoodData AI, and GoodData Analytics Lake. As far as our Analytics Lake, what we're looking at here is all about, in the first half of 2025, improving query performance and putting into place aggregate awareness. And that aggregate awareness should be shipping in the next few weeks or month, I would say. After that, what we're looking at is caching strategies, right? So the cache right now is very manual. You have to set when you want the cache when you want the cache to empty. We're going to be using, giving you the ability to have much more use case specific ability to do that at the level of data sets and workspaces, and not just your full data model like you have today. We will be providing native integration with Iceberg and Star Rocks, which is a really powerful MPP OLAP engine, so that you can house all your data with GoodData in the most modern, well-adopted, blazingly fast technology that exists. So for those of you who use us for that, for those of you who are on GoodData platform and you use us as your end-to-end analytics provider, your data warehouse, your transformation, and your BI and AI, we will be able to provide all of that going forward, but you should expect, much better performance and that sort of thing because we are integrating these best in breed technologies into that. And then in the long term, AI controlled caching. So, intelligently pre-caching the cache based on your usage statistics of your customers. And then finally providing full data marts, a multi-tenant data mart experience where each workspace has its own data mart with just the data it needs for that particular customer or user group so that you have the best possible performance and ironclad security because there's no data mingling. As far as AI is concerned, there you go, MCP support on the AI roadmap. So yes, there will be MCP support. You're going to be looking at that coming on board online shortly, and then we're going to be doing more with the actual data. So Gen AI data stories and situations where you give us access to the data, our AI access to the data, we'll be able to generate narratives and that sort of thing based on the data. Of course, it's the year of the agent, so setting up agentic processes within GoodData. And then finally, in 2026, what we call perceptive analytics, always on autonomous data analytics that are automatically detecting data situations that your customers should know about. And then finally, user-specific analytics content that takes into account that individual user's preferences and revealed preferences from their usage patterns. And then finally, let's not forget BI. You've seen what we have today. Coming shortly, we're going to be bringing the as code experience into the web portal to allow you to access the code directly from the GoodData UI, not having to use some third-party IDE in order to access it. Table improvements we showed you. Of course, GeoCharts and GeoAnalytics, we're beginning a big sprint on this to give you completely replace the charting experience with GoodData. In GoodData with something much more modern and much more flexible. And then in the long term, UI composability. We're really committed to making the UI as composable as possible to support your engineers, to give you that just so experience where you can build, something like I said at the beginning, that's not good enough, but that really matches your use case perfectly. And this composability is a big part of that story. And then finally, giving you the ability to manage all of the metadata within the GoodData UI itself. That's going to be really important for AI in particular, that you have to have great metadata if you want great AI. Today, you manage metadata almost exclusively through API and SDK. We will be bringing that experience into the UI as well. Okay. Woo. Okay. Corey, good to see you here, Corey. Custom height and width possible for and within the containers. So I wouldn't not at the pixel level, but you can within the containers, change the height and width of things, but it's kind of like a step change, not to the degree of it. I want this 5 pixels wider, right? But that's something we can look at if it's something your team needs. So let us know. All right, with that said, I'm going to invite Baz on to share with us what it is that they're doing at Sustain 360 with GoodData. Baz, welcome back to the show.
Okay, thanks, Ryan. I appreciate the opportunity. I'm Baz Khuti, the founder and CEO of Sustain 360. If you go through the slides here, the software essentially is designed to build a unified climate platform. I don't know if you're going to flip the slides for me, Ryan.
Oh, yeah. Oh, sorry. I got to reshare them. My bad.
That's no worries.
There we go.
Yeah, just move on.
Yep.
So basically, who are we? We're a SaaS company focused on climate intelligence. And what we're building is a unified climate intelligence platform. What traditionally clients have done is built siloed solutions or bought siloed products. But as we go more and more into what we call a climate economy in the future, then we need a solution which addresses that. So what Sustain 360 does is uses the power of data analytics and AI with a common data model built on GoodData underneath this, which brings a holistic approach to answering the following questions for our clients. So firstly, the client's trying to understand across the enterprise. So it could be a major corporation with hundreds and thousands of plants around the world. What is my carbon footprint? And that is not an easy thing to go and do. You can maybe do it at a plant level or a product level, but when you're doing it at an enterprise level with 30, 50,000 products, how do you do that? So that's kind of what's my carbon footprint. Well, once you know your carbon footprint, then what are you going to do about it? How do I reduce it? How do I now take action to now reduce where the changes in material, changes in energy, changes in suppliers, supply chain networks? You're going to make some kind of degree at different levels, at different plants, at different product levels. And so how do that all the changes you're going to make get rolled up and understand the impacts of that, both from a environmental perspective, but more importantly, from a financial perspective. So it has to be cost justified. And then while you're doing that, there is obviously continuous climate change. So you've got to assess the risk to doing these changes. If you're changing your suppliers out, well, what's the current risk in terms of supply chain risk, in terms of climate, to change rising sea levels and so on. So that's what the risk side does, brings in that dimension. And if you're doing that, then you're building resiliency into your organization because you're taking into account the changes in dynamics as you go forward with your operations. So all these things are coming together. And so we call that climate intelligence. And to do that, we needed a platform. We needed an analytics platform, a data platform, and AI together to do that. So if you just move on, right. So what were our needs? Our needs kind of as a analytics company, a SaaS company, building climate intelligence, our needs kind of came down to these areas. We absolutely had to have multi-tenancy from the beginning. It wasn't something, it was a kind of afterthought. You cannot build something and retrofit at multi-tenancy. It just does not work. And with role-based access down to a field level. And so how do we build that out natively? That was a key requirement. The ability to fuse together numerous different data sets, which are highly complex and interrelated, had to be created. And so we needed a tool to go do that. All the metrics we use have to align to industry standards because of regulatory needs. So we have to show that the metric was calculated in this particular method, and the method was aligned to this industry standard. And as we know, standards change. So that has to evolve as well. We have to make sure the reporting was configuration, and we can build the analytics and dashboards as code into our applications. And then we were really looking for a platform which was really a modern architecture. A lot of what was out there from the alternatives perspective was some of it was pre-cloud, and what they had done is a lift and shift, or they'd wrap it around various services, and more recently wrap it around AI. So it wasn't really native from the beginning. So we're born in the cloud, we're born in AI. And so how do we pick a platform which allows those things to be natively there? And obviously, as a software company here, we have to make sure that everything we do can be maintained and the support overhead is low. So that's kind of our needs. We looked at a lot of alternative options out there in the market. Many of them, you can see the red crosses there, really didn't handle our needs in terms of complexity of data models. I had to buy a different product to go do that. Native multi-tenancy, we had to explain multi-tenancy to some of them as to what it meant, and really they didn't get it. And then a lot of these guys were born before the cloud, or even before the AI for sure. And they were really retrofitting AI into what they were doing. So siloed tools, poor multi-tenancy support, very high integration cost because I had to plug different components together, and hence support goes up. With GoodData, we had a great experience in terms of fulfilling our needs in each of those areas. And so we saw a cohesive platform, easy to use, easy to start working with the analytics, start to build the applications, integrate them in what we're doing. And then what we saw was, more importantly, because this is our journey, is that they were future ready. And we know we're in a journey ourselves. And so we needed a partner which could actually be ready for us as well. So that was kind of our needs. Let me just show you how all this sort of comes together in our application. So let me start sharing here. Share my screen. Can you see that? Okay, so first thing you notice, I'm in
Yep.
Sustain 360, SaaS-based application. The way we work in high energy intensive and as a result, high carbon intensive industries. So cement is a very carbon intensive generating industry, high emitter emissions. Steel is the same, glass and so on. So where we got a lot of energy being used, you've got to generate a huge amount of carbon. In this view here, in this demonstration, what we've done is that there's a company, there's a kind of an enterprise view, a company level view of these two plants, okay, and another plant as well. And these are then aggregated into company. So if I'm in corporate and I'm looking at my total carbon footprint across all the assets that we've got, then I can look at a corporate view. I'm a tenant in that perspective. Or if I'm in the plant at a plant level or an individual asset level, then I can just look at the asset and the plant I need to look at. And so with GoodData and the multi-tenancy support, we're able to do this aggregation and disaggregation effectively. So if I log in, the first thing or access the company level one, the first thing you notice is that there is a canvas. We call this a sustainability canvas. And this canvas allows us to navigate between baseline. So this is the plants and all these plants rolled up and their baseline carbon. So just think about our cholesterol effectively. It's all been collected and then stored as a baseline. And then we're going to go on some degree of an improvement plan. So these are the alternatives, and you can have as many alternatives as you want. And so you've got alternatives which have been rolled up across all those plants and now aggregated. And so we can now easily compare and contrast the reduction in carbon between the baseline and the alternatives. These nodes here are what was required from a standards perspective. So the GHG protocol created from the Paris Agreement requires that carbon is measured in scope 1, 2, and 3. And so we've basically allowed that metric to be automatically calculated. If I then break down into the nodes here, I can now go into individual plants and look at individual plants' emissions easily. I can just navigate all the way through in what I'm doing. So hopefully that gives you kind of a quick feel for the experience here. But what's really powerful is when you've got these relationships all mapped out in a knowledge graph, how do you bring the analytics in? And then the power of GoodData's widgets allow us to effectively view these dashboards interactively with our application. And so you could see clearly that the reduction between the baseline and alternative by scope has been mapped out. I can add charts and hover over things. I can sort of make this, zoom this out and so on. I can change the metrics. I'm looking at metrics per ton, or I can look at it from a kg point of view. These are huge numbers. So you can see here the reduction is around 500 million kgs of CO2 emissions if you went down to that alternative. So that kind of gives you an overall view. But if I then want to explore further, I can then go and say, okay, let me look at that particular node, and I can go say, okay, here's the emissions on that, or I can go to a node here. I can drill down and understand the exact emissions. Standards are embedded into everything we do, and that has to be reported. So I can now navigate my way through the chart here and build further analytics, which are essentially allowing me to explore the actual numbers behind the total aggregation at the plant level or sub-plant level.
And so
Sorry,
just
Ryan.
to help set the context here, how much of this is being driven like by the multi-tenancy features at GoodData? Is each level of this like a separate tenant, or how is it structured under the hood?
Oh, right, that's a great question. So firstly, at the physical level, you've got, if I just for the physical level, there's separation of the customer. So you've got a physical separation of a tenant. Then you've got at the company level, so you're now in the company. So this cement plant, for example, and we've got a segregation of the plant, that company's plants now. And so we're now looking at multiple plants because I'm looking at that particular organizational structure. Now, if I go into the other plant and I now only want to look at that plant, then I can do that at a sort of logical view of that tenant, if that makes sense, yeah?
Yeah, good. Thank you.
Yeah. Now, in terms of reporting, we just showed you the dashboard capabilities there. The other thing we can do quite easily is put in where are the highest emitters and where things are. Let me just bring that back up again. There's usually live demos. It's not going to do it for me.
Yeah, well, it's a guarantee, right?
Yeah, it always happens as you go through it. I was working a few seconds ago. The next area is around how do I do the reporting? There's two ways of accessing the reporting. You can simply right click on a node and it's contextual to that node, the report will appear. Or you can select from the menu here. So either way, so if I do it here, pretty cool. You can go into that node and remember I'm looking at the baseline and I'm looking at all the plants and their total carbon emissions aggregated here for those plants. And then you can see the ability to generate rich graphics here from an emission perspective and stages and so on. And these charts are interactive. So if I click on a particular area, it will then change the actual view. So you can see that's now reduced there. And I can reset. So the interaction of the charts is really good. And then all the emission factors, and these are, you can see all the emission factors we have by materials, energy sources, categories are all broken down as we go forward. And these rich visualizations really help analyze where the impacts are. I can then flip that view from baseline to alternative and apply that. And you can see the alternative has a reduction from 1.5 to 1.4. Reduction at the overall plant level, and it's the same visualization again for that baseline view and alternative views. So I can look at this, cut it that way, or I can say, okay, I really don't want to look at it another way. I want to look at it, at a plant level, and so I can now bring in the plants. I can change the plants around. I can look at a baseline, or I can look at an alternative view. So I could flip between different plants and different designs easily within my report. I can also export that report out, and if I just sort of flip over here and trying to find the actual report, believe me, it exports out exactly as you see in the reports here. So one of the key things was when you export to PDF, you sometimes lose resolution. With the GoodData reports, there was no reduction in that, and then we could add as many labels as we want into this. So that was kind of looking at a group level, and I've now got a view where I've got to look at this from a comparison point of view. So we have a set of features around decarbonisation. One of the obviously important features is to look at it from a waterfall perspective. So how do I now know that my baseline was X amount of X billion amounts of CO2 emissions on an annual basis? As I say, these are very, very high emitting assets. And these are multiple plants which are rolled up. So these are actually in the billions. And so now I've got a reduction here, and I've got a further reduction here. And I can look at that by where are the reductions occurring within energy, within various material changes, electricity changes, and so on. And so how is that 500 million kg reduction going to happen, and what time period as well as we go for, and then design changes as well with the material or energy. So we could build the waterfall charts and other charts as we go forward. So that's kind of the group view. As I go to a individual view, I can now, and this is the power of a common data model underneath, because I'm now going into a cement sector and a steel sector, two completely different industries. And remember, that was all rolled up into the group view. So different sectors, different industries now have to be aggregated using those standard metrics. So I'm now going to cement. I've got the cement plant, exactly the same visualization, exactly the same navigation to go and look at, drill down into things are built into the dashboard. And then if I go into the reporting, again, I'm only going to see that specific plant and the details of that plant. Okay, so you can see here and further details around exactly what's going on here. Yeah. The next area in terms of this particular view is if I, again, the power of that data model is I'm going to flip a completely other industry. I'm going to go into the steel sector. So the steel industry, same visualization, same analytic view. I go into here, I go and see the emission factors. Here, I'm just looking at the plant, not the alternatives. In this view, same thing. They've also got their carbon emission report, but for this particular plant, we had to create their ESGs. So it was additional reporting, which had to be provided. And so here are all the ESG, so environmental sustainable metrics for that plant specifically. And so if I go into the employee here, these employee metrics, and you can see I have to align it to a standard. So all these metrics have to be calculated to a standard, and I have to show that I'm compliant to that standard. So that has to be embedded. So I could look at my gender, my age groups, types, ethnicity, gender breakdown, even down to makeup of employees around executive, middle management by gender as well. So this level of granularity, and this data is an API which is coming from the HR system for that plant, and that which allows us, goes into our data warehouse to produce this level of analytic. If I then show the power of the data model here is energy. Obviously, these are high energy intensive industries. So we've got the energy data to calculate the carbon, but now we can use that same energy data to report for ESG reporting to see what the kilns are doing for that steel plant. Remember, this is a steel plant. It's going to use different assets. So these are furnaces. And so these furnaces and their emissions, see the amount of energy being consumed. It's a humongous amount of energy is being used by these plants on an annual basis in terms of kilowatt hours. And we can break that down. You can see exactly where those energy usage is occurring. So completely different industry, completely different asset, allows us to look at their energy footprint against the standard. I hope that gives you a quick feel for how we're using Sustain 360 to enable climate intelligence and the power of GoodData's tools and platform to make our products successful and help our clients and address, how do we measure, report, and reduce carbon and environmental impacts, but at the same time, help them achieve their net zero targets. Thanks, Ryan.
That was great, Baz. Thank you for sharing that with us. Really cool to see what you are able to do there, and like really putting like the good part in GoodData, right? This is data being used for good, so it's awesome to see. Well, that wraps things up here for us, folks. So thanks for joining us today. Of course, you can always stay in touch with us. We're active everywhere, LinkedIn, Facebook. There was a question, we got a question earlier, how do I know when I have a new feature? Look, the best way to do it, go to gooddataconnect.slack.com. Every new feature, we have a new features channel, and you get an announcement the day it's available that describes it with links to the documentation and a demo of how to use it. So please join the community if you want to get these new feature announcements as quickly as possible. Also, coming up on July 23rd, we will be doing a webinar, The Best Embedded Analytics Strategy Isn't Just Build or Buy. We will be going deep on the strategies our customers use to develop really custom, tailor-made data products like what Baz has that meets exactly their users' needs. And then you can catch us live September 10th and 11th at Big Data Expo Utrecht. September 17th, we'll be doing another product update webinar, this time for Q3. And then finally, September 24th and 25th at Big Data London. I hope to see you there. So I want to thank Baz again for joining us. And until next time, folks, take care. And we look forward to seeing you on another Good Data webinar. Bye.
Thank you very much. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Baz.
Thanks.